if I could just...
I just love hearing his answers again.
No, it's great. So, Stephen, last night you had the event at the Apple Store with some American Doctor Who fans. How was that for you? Did you expect that kind of reception?
Oh, it was, well, I mean, the responses here have been tremendous fun in New York. It's been really exciting because, I don't know, I think Americans are a bit less restrained than us Brits. We just sit around competing with different levels of reticence. So to get, shouting and clapping and cheering has been really, really exciting. It's like surreal, because, it's New York and it's Doctor Who. It doesn't seem quite possible sometimes.
Now, did you anticipate writing for an American audience as you went into the new series?
I don't even anticipate writing for a British audience. I just think what would be really, really cool to happen in Doctor Who. How else do you write a story? I entertain myself and hope it entertains other people. And I think if you ask the American audience, insofar as you could do that, they wouldn't especially want you to Americanise it. That's not how it works.
Now, I've heard it said that you were aiming for a sort of dark fairy tale with the new series. Can you explain how that's sort of coming across in the stories and the portrayal?
Well, to be honest, the whole dark fairy tale thing is because people, jammed my arm at my back and demanded that I label it somehow. And I suppose that is a reasonable label for it. It's not, as I'm sure we all know, that putting dark in front of fairy tale is entirely redundant, or at any rate until Disney have remade the fairy tale and defanged it. So fairy tales are automatically rather dark. I don't mean the Doctor Who's now like Little Red Riding Hood. I just mean that Doctor Who's a sort of modern fairy tale. It's how we tell our children that there are things out there who want to eat them. It tends to use the details of the real world and twist them and make them menacing. It tends to people the shadows of your bedroom with monsters. I'm always saying, to the point where I'm sure everybody's bored senseless, that Doctor Who does not take place in outer space or in the future. It takes place under your bed, at the back of your whole cupboard, and that's what I mean by fairy tale. It's that genre.
All right. Now, more so than some of the other writers who have worked on the Doctor Who series, you seem to be really into using time travel as a sort of plot device. Can you speak about where that came from and why you're so interested in toying with it?
I've always been interested in slightly out-of-sequence storytelling. I even did that in the sitcoms I've written, so that was a natural shoe-in for me. And the fact is, the man doesn't just have a time machine, he lives in one. That changes his relationship with the universe. No one ever dies for him, nothing is ever over for him. You couldn't do it every week. You couldn't do every story like Blink, which is a story in the third series. You couldn't be timey-wimey all the time. But I think it's something that could be explored a little more often. We could do a little bit more with the fact that the universe is happening in the wrong order from the point of view of the Doctor. And that's interesting. That's peculiar. It changes the way he thinks about people.
Now, speaking of this whole timey-wimey and things happening out of sequence, we are going to be seeing River Song again.
Yes.
Can you hint about what time period this is in her life that we're going to be meeting her in?
Well, obviously, it's before the events of the library, because she's, alive.
Yeah.
It's quite late on for her and very early on for the Doctor. But already that relationship, whatever it is sort of forming. They're becoming that bickering couple. It's like no matter how dangerous something is, they're like a married couple arguing over a map in a car already. But that doesn't mean that's what they are. And there are darker hints about what River might be to the Doctor in the upcoming stories.
Okay. Are we ever going to see that initial meeting? At least in your tenure?
We're gonna do the whole story.
Okay.
Yeah. As will be clear by the end of this season, we're going to deliver on it. We're not just going to leave it as an enigma forever. There's going to be an answer. Just not yet. All
right. A lot of people have been wondering. We have Amy Pond, and she's sort of a contemporary companion again. Are you interested in getting more into companions from other time zones? Not time zones, time periods?
It's a conversation that's come up several times in the last few years, and Russell was very, very close to going for I think a Victorian one. It's just, and what drew him back and what would make me hesitate is your identification point for the audience suddenly gets a little stranger, a little harder to find because the Doctor isn't from our world. Suddenly the companion isn't either. Does that matter? I think one day it won't matter. I think maybe, and I did think about it too, maybe now is too soon. But I say too soon, it's been on for 30, 40 odd years. But in terms of the new series.
Yeah.
But never say never. I think it would be, it's the next big trick to play.
Have you any ideas about bringing on an ensemble cast, like more companions along with Amy Pond?
Wait and see.
Yeah? Okay. I like that answer because I'm very much a fan of multiple companion stories. So I completely forgot. Okay, so what time periods that we haven't seen that Doctor Who's covered in all of its years are you interested in delving into?
I honestly don't think of it in those terms. I really just think of the story. So there's no particular era. I wouldn't claim to be a huge expert in history for a start. I have to go and find other writers for that.
Okay.
I mean, apart from Russell, obviously compelled me to write about France in the past, whatever that was, and the Second World War, and that was hell for me. I had to go and do research. Quite often the ideas for stories set in the past are brought to me. But by people who've got a little obsession with that, and I think really you have to match up those stories with people who are interested in writing them. But no, I don't have a particular time. No.
Speaking of particular time, what time is Amy Pond from?
It's a very difficult question, isn't it?
Yes, because we do kind of get some hints of some anachronistic elements in her town.
Are there? What's the anachronistic element?
Well, we have the cameras with picture-taking qualities, but then her boyfriend has a ID issued in 1990.
Oh, right. I think. I'll just be very, very honest with you. I think that's just a mistake. I didn't even know about it.
Oh, okay.
So sorry. It's a misprint.
Oh, all right.
Or if you prefer, it's that time warp. The ripples are still going out.
Okay, because there have been some postulations that it has to do with the crack in the wall and two spaces in time.
Let's see.
Wait and see.
There's stuff going on with that, but I mean, it is a noble and proper fan ambition, and I have it myself to make all of Doctor Who make sense. Good luck.
Good luck with that.
I mean, for those of us who are very, very old, just try and work out when the unit stories are meant to have taken place.
Yeah, I give up on the unit. So we see the Daleks are coming back, and we see the monsters from Blink, the statues.
Yeah.
Are there any other old monsters from the older stories that you're looking to integrate or have been toying around with, or?
We're going to bring back, in a slightly odd way, the Silurians from who first appeared in 1970. Not so much the specific way they did them, but more the idea of the previous owners of the planet waking up and trying to get rid of the monkeys that have taken over. Because that's just one of the best ideas Doctor Who's ever had. I mean, it's a genius idea. That's a movie franchise idea. Malcolm Hall could have got very, very rich in that if he hadn't just sold it to Doctor Who. It's a brilliant idea. I mean, we just wanted to revisit that. But actually, the way we handle the Silurians, the way they look, is quite different. So it's a sort of semi-return, but more a return to the idea than to the specific way it was done.
All right. Now, with this portrayal of the Doctor, how much of the Doctor, as he is now, was your concept, and how much of it was Matt Smith coming along with ideas?
Well, I think the baseline Doctor is the Doctor. I mean, you don't write him hugely differently, because he's sort of the same. He's the same man, and especially in the first episode, where really, and we did discuss this, you have to sort of think, it's actually David Tennant, trying to work out why he suddenly looks different. And he can't just immediately become someone else. 5 minutes ago he was saying goodbye to Rose Tyler, and now he's running around wondering why everything doesn't work the same way it used to. So you have to think that way. And then, a lot of it comes from Matt, because he takes that part that's been played by 10 other men, and finds his way through it and his way around it, and then I start responding to what he does. But baseline, I think I was looking at some of the Tom Baker scripts which have been published from his first year and thinking these were scripts largely written for John Pertwee that were really being performed by Tom Baker. I was thinking, you could pretty much give them to Matt. But Matt's a very different actor from Tom Baker. It's the way he embodies the part. You write the part of the Doctor as honestly and clearly and properly as you can, and then you hand it to a brilliant actor, and they inflect it and change it. And then insensibly, in ways that you aren't always completely aware of, you start to write the actor. His mannerisms and his voice start creeping into your head, but I don't consciously think about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was anything different between writing stories for the Ninth Doctor and the 10th Doctor, and now the 11th.
As I say, the Doctor is the Doctor. I mean, you don't want to think he's a different person. And there's no such thing as the 11th Doctor. It's the Doctor with his 11th face. You know, so it's that same man. Now, if you put on a different bunch of clothes, a different pair of shoes, change your hair, then you feel different. Now, imagine what it's like if you just get a whole new body. So it is going to change the way he thinks and behaves a bit. Fundamentally, he's been pretty consistent as a character for a very, very long time.
Now, with the last few series endings with Russell, we had sort of spectacles and big game changers that kind of up the ante with each one. Are we going to be seeing that with your tenure, or are you going for more intimate looks at the story?
The season finale, now more intimate than ever. Well, this time we go pretty big, I have to say. But then we kind of go intimate as well. I don't know. I mean, it just depends what's the most dramatic thing to do. It's automatically dramatic if you're threatening the entire universe. It's equally dramatic if you threaten one person. You can, it doesn't have to be huge. It has to be huge for the characters. It's not. It has to be the most. I mean, what I've got in mind for the finale for next series is, I suppose you think a smaller story, but it's something to have a huge impact on the Doctor himself. So it just whatever the biggest story is, big meaning big for the characters rather than necessarily wiping out the entire universe. But if you look at Russell's finale, which I love, for the bits that really haunt you and that you live with are the goodbye on the beach, or when Chris bundled Rose into the TARDIS and sent her off. He was so brilliant at finding those intimate moments in the epic stories. So both, everything, neither. There you go.
All right. Are there any moments or clues or just little lines from your personal stories in the past that might be reappearing in the new series?
Probably. I mean, there's bits and pieces. I mean, obviously the Weeping Angel's about River Song, but I think he comes out with wibbly wobbly timey wimey at some point because I like the line. But I mean, it's really not a major thing I think about. I mean, really and truly, the problems of a Doctor Who story are so big, and the demands of it are so huge that you just try and make the most exciting story. You're not really thinking about, I can now quote myself. And I think I did a little bit of that. I mean, I was rather hated what I did when I did Girl in the Fireplace. I had him say bananas are good again. And I thought, I shouldn't have done that, because that just means it sort of reminds everybody that I wrote this one. It's like putting a wee stamp on it, and you think, that's not relevant. It's not relevant to the series. Kids don't care if it's me writing it, or Russell writing it, or anybody writing it. They just want to watch the story.
Was the Girl in the Fireplace a sort of template for River Song and I suppose Amy in a way?
I suppose insofar as it's meetings with people confounded by the fact he's a time traveler, but I just take it back to that he lives in a time machine. His relationships with people must be a lot like that a lot of the time. So yes, I suppose. I mean, I was thinking of how we're going to deal with the fact that Amy and the new Doctor are introduced in the same episode, and so for the first time, I think a long time, we had the problem of the Doctor had nobody to prove he was the Doctor to. It was a very odd situation. I thought reusing that idea from Girl in the Fireplace, so that he's been the Doctor to her for 14 years, and even if she knows him better than he knows him, because she's talked about it for all that time. But yes, in a way, I suppose it's more about the time travel thing. Just that he lives in a time machine. His life is like that. It's all, as I say, happening in the wrong order as far as he's concerned.
Okay. And last question: is there any sort of hints that we can have about the big bad for this series, or
not necessarily?
No, because I thought
and see.
I heard it stated that it was already seen in the first episode.
No, was it? Oh, I bet you'll have to stick around and find out, won't you?
Watch the rest of the episodes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.